Hey people, how are you doing? Got a great show for you today. It's actually an interview we've got going. And as always, you're listening to The Duggystone Show. Yeah, I had the pleasure of speaking to Katie on the show. The Duggystone Show. So the question you ask yourself is, what do you do if you've got a successful business as a man and you decide that you're transgender and you're going to change to a woman? So that's what the show's about today. It was a really interesting interview. It was great to meet Katie, and I'm looking forward to seeing her journey as time goes on. So sit back and relax. Oh, we better play our show sponsor, because the show is sponsored today by Ian Richards. So let's hear from Ian Richards.
Concerned about your behaviour or finding life too difficult? Are you or someone you love suffering with an addiction? Addiction or behaviour problems are linked with inner pain. As a qualified counsellor and psychotherapist, I'll help you resolve your problems or struggles. Email Ian at ianrichardsbtj.com or call 07465 226668.
There you go. Thanks for sponsoring the show, Ian. Great guy, great business. I'd suggest you go and check him out. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with the show. Right, okay, people. Like I said, we've got a very special guest today. A really interesting subject, and I'm really glad we're covering it on the station as well. So anyway, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Kirk. Thanks very much for bringing me along today. So my name's Katie Neeves, although I'm currently legally known as Martin Neeves. I'm actually a transgender woman, and I'm born as a man, certainly with a male body, but I will very soon be changing to female.
Yeah, because we had a pre chat about that when you first came in. And it's really an interesting subject, and I think it's quite important that you're actually sharing your story, and there's a reason why you're sharing your story, and why you've decided to take the decision to do the way that you're doing it. So do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can sort of tell you about the history on the build up to this, but if I sort of tell you why I'm here first of all, is that basically most people, when they go through this sort of transition, is that they go away very quietly and do it very quietly, and then sort of hide themselves away for 2 or 3 years, or even 5 years, and then come back with a completely new set of friends and invent a completely new life for themselves. But I didn't want to do that because I'm a freelance photographer and filmmaker, and I'm reasonably well known. I'm not mega famous or anything, but I've spent 22 years building up a good name for myself with my business, and I've got a strong personal brand. It's called Martin Neeves Photography and Film, and I felt that if I was to change the name of the business to Katie Neeves Photography and Film, it would be like starting from scratch again. So I didn't want to do that. So I thought, well, I haven't really got the option of hiding away and doing this quietly. So I thought I'll just do this very openly and very publicly and very honestly. So I created a coming out video. Okay. And that was just phenomenal. I made it and I put it out on Facebook, and I couldn't believe the response I had. I was just inundated with hundreds and hundreds of messages of support, emails, texts, phone calls, the lot. I couldn't do anything for quite a few days because I was just replying to people because people were so lovely. It was absolutely phenomenal. And
was that people that could identify with what you were doing, or it's obviously the same as well, transgender, or was it just generally people?
It was just all over, mainly the general public. So there was a mixture really of friends, clients, people who I hadn't sort of seen for ages or heard for years, but also people who I just didn't know, complete strangers. And one thing that really struck me was that quite a few people had been touched by it, and a lot of people said that they know somebody who's transgender or they're closely related to them. And there's one lady in particular who contacted me, and she said that her son was going through this and was having gender issues when he was going through puberty. And he was being treated for it at the Portman Clinic, which is where they treat young transgender people. And she was so worried at the time that he was going to be bullied and that he would be self-harming or attempting suicide like so many do. And she said, if only there was someone like you out there at the time just to say, look, it's okay to be trans, because it is. And that really struck a chord with me. And I thought, well, actually, I can do some good with this. And if I sort of put myself out there a bit, I've got a fairly strong character, so I can take it, and I can just sort of stand up and say, yes, look, it is okay to be trans. It's tough, but it is okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can help save lives.
I mean, yeah, and that's why I wanted to cover this as well, because I think there's a lot of people, whatever troubles they're going through or whatever turmoil inside, they can blow things up out of all proportion and get to the point where they take their own life. I was talking to a friend today about, I can't even talk about what's going on, but someone's just gone through a bad relationship and he's ended up killing himself, and it's that's pretty terrible, isn't it? Really,
it is.
If you're in that much despair and you've got nowhere to turn to, that you think the only option is to end your suffering through that way. And I'm so glad that you're doing this, and I think it is very brave to do it, because you did not know before you went on this journey how the public would react to you, how people would react to you. So for you actually to put your head above the parapet, you're basically forced to do it really with your business.
Yeah.
If you wasn't in that business, then it would have been you could have. I'm not saying you would have done, but there's a chance that you would have took the easier option, even though it's still not an easy option, to actually go, well, like you say, let's go away, let's move, let's go, and then re-emerge as another person.
Absolutely. That's what most people do.
Yeah,
Definitely. But what's really shocked me when I found out the suicide statistics, particularly for young transgender people, 48% of transgender people under the age of 26 have already attempted suicide.
Wow.
And that's 1 in 2, and that shouldn't be.
No.
And so I really want to reach out to them and just say, look, it is okay. And the fear of coming out is a lot worse than the reality. I mean, for instance, when I made that video, and that was quite tough doing that, and then actually putting it out on Facebook, my finger was hovering over the mouse, ready to click, and I thought, as soon as I make that click, my life is never going to be the same again. But that fear of doing it was so much worse than the reality. The reality is just so much better, and I need people to know that.
So where can people get that video from if they want to watch it? Because I think
well, I've actually got a transition blog that I'm doing, which is on martinneeves.com/Katie. I'll spell that, so it's Martin with an I, so Martin, and then Neeves is NEEVES.com, and then /Katie, and it's Katie with an IE. So lots of spellings in there, which I'm sure you'll love.
Being dyslexic. Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll put any links to any websites, blogs, or anything like that. If you send them to me, if you've not already sent them to me, I will put them on the show notes.
Great, thank you.
So either on the website, if this will be on the website, or if you're listening to it on a podcast, it'll be all on there. Click on it, because what I don't want to do, and that's why I started doing these podcasts, it was to raise the awareness of dyslexia, which I think is it's not the same, but people go through turmoil.
Of course.
Do I tell someone? I know people who are going for jobs. Do I tell my boss that I'm dyslexic? And that's why me as an individual, I mean, sat here, you wonder probably why I've got a Union Jack shirt on, but I've got all sorts of dyslexic shirts and also and I wear them to stand out, so that people ask me the question, why do you dress like that?
Okay.
Yeah. And then it provokes a question. Why are you called Duggystone? It provokes a question.
Well, that's what I asked you, wasn't it, when you came in? Yeah.
And I do it because we're told that we all have to be this thing. So we all have to be. I'm talking about a dyslexic as an example. We all have to learn a certain way. We have to have these qualifications. We have to dress this way because we're taught at school that we all have to wear the same uniform. We go into corporate world and we all have to dress a certain way and behave a certain way. And I, as an individual, say, do you know what? This is me. Yeah,
absolutely.
People might not like it, and people might just go, "That's not very professional. You're wearing or you swear sometimes." And I just go, well, that's me. Some people, I'm not going to try and convert the people that don't like me or don't get it. I'm playing to an audience, if you want, of people that do get me, and I'm trying to, and I think it's great what you're doing, because it's very, very similar. You're putting the stake in the ground and saying, this is me. Yeah, this is me. This is who I am.
And if you've got a problem with it, that's your problem, isn't it?
It's correct. And every group of individuals needs a champion and someone to look for. And I'm just hoping that when I go and talk in schools or go anywhere, I might be talking to hundreds of people. If I only affect one person in that room, great. And if from this interview and this interview we're doing, if it stops one person out there doing something, the unthinkable, then that's great. And
it's worth it, absolutely, yeah. And I think by reaching out like this and getting this sort of publicity, hopefully that will happen. And also, as well as that, as a spin-off of that, it will just help to educate the general public who have no idea about gender dysphoria as well. So it's a big thing.
Yeah. So gender dysphoria. So because there's lots of words go around, and people sort of hear these words and don't want to ask the question. So, if you don't mind, what does gender dysphoria mean in simplistic terms?
Well, if I start off with when a baby's born, the doctor or midwife looks at the baby and basically looks at the genitals and just decides, just on the appearance of the genitals, whether it's a boy or a girl. And you might think that's fairly straightforward. Well, some people actually have both bits of genitalia, so that's slightly more complex. But they're just going on the sex characteristics that are there. What they can't see is what's going on in the baby's head, in the brain. And gender identity is all about what's going on between your ears rather than what's between your legs. So it's what's going on in your brain. It's your whole sense of self. And of course, when they're sexing a baby, they can't tell. They can't look into the brain, they can't tell. It's only as that baby grows up and the child grows up that they get a sense of themselves, of who they are. Like, how do you know, apart from looking at your genitalia, how do you know that you're a man?
Yeah.
It's your general self, isn't it? It's your sense of being. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And what happened with gender dysphoria? So most people are very lucky in that their gender identity, what they're thinking in their head, coincides. Matches their sex characteristics. However, there's a lot of people, and they reckon it's about 1% of the UK population. So it's a minority, but still a lot of people have got gender dysphoria where there's a mismatch. So that what's going on in their head is different to what's between their legs, and so that's called gender dysphoria. When you've got that mismatch, and then you feel uneasy with who you are, with what you've got.
I get that. So I mean, I know it's not the same, but that's almost like someone being born with blue eyes and saying, "Oh, you're that," or they've got brown eyes, so they're that, and you've got ginger hair, so actually you're this, and you're blonde, and I know it's not the same, but it's sort of same. I try and use analogies, not always successfully, but right. So you're born to the world as one thing because you've had got a penis or you've not got a penis, and then you as an individual, throughout your life, you didn't realise that you wanted to transition, so you was quite an older age. But you were saying when we was having a chat before that you just thought you enjoyed being dressed as a female.
Yeah. And just sort of take you back actually, just to that to the bit about you're not just like born as male or female, just as you say, you're assigned that. That's the point. I think if we weren't assigned that either male or female, and if we were allowed to decide for ourselves as we grow up, then this problem wouldn't occur. There wouldn't be gender dysphoria, because we would be able to assign it ourselves. Whereas the problem is it's assigned for us based on not what's going on in our head. That's the problem. So so I just wanted to sort of go back on
that makes sense. But I'm not understanding.
No, that's why I'm trying to get it as clear as I can. But so going back to my case, I mean, some people know right from an early age that they are transgender and they are completely in the wrong body. I didn't. However, going back to my earliest memories, back to the age of about 3 or 4, I cross-dressed, and so that was gender dysphoria, and it was my way of coping with my gender dysphoria was cross-dressing. Although I didn't admit that to myself until I was in my sort of mid-20s. There was lots of self-denial and self-loathing and purging and all sorts of stuff going on, and it was really hard, and I just didn't want to admit it to myself that I was a cross-dresser. And lots of people really struggle with that. But as soon as I admitted that to myself and embraced it, I just viewed it as a hobby, and it was just something that I needed to do, and I knew that I would always need to do because of the gender dysphoria. But when I did it, it made me happy, and ultimately, what we all want in life is to be happy, don't we?
Yeah.
So that's how I was really right the way up until sort of last October. I was 48 then. I'm 49 now, and then. In October, my gender dysphoria increased to such an extent that I just didn't know what gender I was at all, and I was just in complete turmoil with it. Even to the point where I was searching Google, typing into Google, what gender is Martin Neeves? I mean, how mad is that? I mean, I know in my right mind that that Google can't give me that answer, but of course, whenever you want any information, you go straight to Google these days, don't you?
You do.
Not wishing to plug Google, but that's where everybody tends to go. And since speaking to lots of other trans people, a lot of them have done the same thing, because you just tend to go there and you're clutching at straws. You're trying to do anything just to try and work out what the hell you are.
and that's why it needs people like yourself who are happy to create something like a blog and doing these interviews and things like that, so that when another Martin is searching what gender they are, hopefully they'll come across your blogs and your interviews, and it will start to answer the questions, because undoubtedly everyone's journey is different in life, whatever it is, but actually there's always someone else who's gone through something. No one else's journey is going to be the same as yours, like it's not going to be the same as mine as being a dyslexic.
No, but mine's very similar to lots of other trans people.
But you'll be there's very similar, it's going to follow a similar line, the confusion, what I'm a cross-dress. Okay, actually that is, wow, everything he's saying there, that's me, she's saying, sorry, is me, is me, I'm the same, and all you're trying to do is explain it to people to the point where they know they're not alone, and they don't have to do things, go do daft things and self-harm or whatever. No. And once showing it as an example that actually the worst thing is actually you wondering what's going to happen, rather than you actually come in and saying, by the way, people, I'm in the wrong body. It should be a lady.
It's really hard. You have to get past a lot of fear before you can admit it to yourself. I mean, I went through a whole process to work out who I am. Basically, it started actually back in May. So before I had these feelings, I'd actually gone to see a clairvoyant that I met at a business networking event. Now, it's quite unusual. I know you do quite a bit of business work with networking. It's quite unusual to meet a clairvoyant.
I've not met any.
No. It's the first time I had. And I was just intrigued by her, really. And I just thought, well, I'll just go along for a reading. And it was nothing to do with my gender, because at that stage I still felt like a man who just needed to cross-dress. I was totally comfortable with that, not a problem at all. And I was just intrigued by her, really, and also just wanting to maybe get an idea, any other ideas that she might have about my business or something, but absolutely nothing to do with the gender. And the reading she gave me a lot of it didn't make sense at the time. It now does. It makes perfect sense now, because she was saying about a new way of being and all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's so much far more that I could go into, but I just parked that, and I didn't read anything about the gender into that at all. But one thing she did say, that said Spirit wants you to go away and take yourself off for a walk in the countryside, just talk to yourself and talk to Spirit, and there's an issue that's a big issue. It's a big part of you that you're not fully in integrity with at the moment. So just go away and ask. You see. So I did this. So I went off to Rutland Water and
I like it.
Lovely, isn't it? So I went, but I didn't go just like around the circular bit where everybody goes, because I thought I want to go somewhere that's quiet so that I can talk to myself like this mad person stomping through this field with my walking boots on. So, and I did. I got my map and my compass and my walking boots, and I did it a hell of a pace. I stomped it out. So it wasn't like a really sitting there being all serene and peaceful. I was stomping my way through there, and I was asking all these questions, and I was a bit disappointed at the time. I was thinking, I was expecting some sort of light bulb moment to say, right, this is what it is. And of course, it doesn't happen like that, and it didn't happen like that. And I came away thinking, I must have done it the wrong way. Perhaps I should have sort of sat there all quietly and serenely rather than stomping it out. But that's the way I did it. So didn't think too much more about that. But spookily enough, around about the same sort of time as that's when my gender dysphoria started to increase. Now, whether that's coincidence or not, I don't know. Who knows? But that's the sort of background to it. So when my gender dysphoria increased and I sort of felt really uneasy about it and in complete turmoil, I thought, well, what I'd do is go and see a counsellor. So I found a counsellor in Coventry, actually, who had got experience of dealing with people with gender issues. And I went to see her, and a lot of people, when they see a counsellor, they go and they'll talk about the weather or anything else but before actually launching into the meat of why they're there. But I didn't. I was just ready to spill, and I just went straight in. And we only had 4 sessions, and that sort of finished just before Christmas, and there was an actual break there. But I felt as if I'd got as far as I could with her. And at the time, I wrongly now came to the conclusion that I was gender fluid. I can see you're looking at me thinking, what the hell's that?
I don't know. Fluid now. Yeah, go on. You're going to have to explain that one to me.
So gender fluid is when it changes how you feel. One week or one day you might feel like you're a woman. One day you feel like you're a man. And
so a bit like being what's the word when you it'll come to me in a minute.
Okay.
Bipolar. I'm not saying
right.
one day you're happy, one day you're
similar to that, really, I suppose. And so I sort of came to that conclusion, but now I realise that it was my fear of admitting myself that I was transgender that was making me hang on to any bit of masculinity that I had. And the thing is, gender isn't binary. A lot of people think it's just binary, that you're either a male or you're female. But gender's not. Gender, there's a whole spectrum, and we're all on the spectrum somewhere. So everyone has got a bit of male and a bit of female in them.
Yeah.
So, but most people don't have a need to examine whereabouts on that spectrum they are.
Yeah.
But at the time, say I felt that I was gender fluid. But I didn't want to leave it to that. So then I got a book, which was it's a self-help book. So it's a bit like psychotherapy in a book, really. And it was written by a gender therapist from the States on how to identify, how to recognise your gender identity. And it took me about 2 months to work through it. There's a lot of work that went into it, going through it. And by the time I got about 3/4 of the way through the book, it was obvious that I was a transgender woman. And then by the time I got to the end of the book, that hadn't changed. It was exactly the same.
What's the book called?
It was. I think it's how to discover your gender identity.
Okay.
And I've got trying to think of the author's name.
Well, you can send us that. We'll add that as a link.
Yeah,
someone might actually want
absolutely.
to go and read that.
I've got that on. It's actually mentioned on my blog. It's
cool.
in one of the, I've got a video on how I discovered my gender identity, and it shows it up on the screen there. So it shows it there. But yeah, absolutely brilliant book. So I did that, but then I didn't want to just leave it there. So the next thing I did, I thought, well, okay, it looks pretty obvious that I am transgender. So then I texted this clairvoyant that I'd seen back in May and just said, I went for that walk you told me to go on, and then after that, I felt really uneasy about my gender identity. And she said, well, why don't you come in for a spiritual healing session? And what that involves is basically, so it's not just a thing where she just tells you what you are, and there's nothing like that at all. It's a 4-hour interactive session where she just uses lots of techniques such as meditation and stuff, just to get you into a calm state and a safe space that you can be 100% honest with yourself and get past your fears. That's the main thing, is getting past your fears, because it's the fear of the consequences of admitting that you're transgender.
Yeah.
That usually stops you from admitting it. So it's just a case of getting past that. And she did that, and so I did that, and it was a very emotional session. I cried buckets that day.
Yeah.
And it was then that I finally admitted to myself that I am a transgender woman and that I need to change my body accordingly.
Right.
And ever since then, from that point onward, that's when I felt that I was Katie rather than Martin.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes total sense. It's obviously, it's intriguing, really, because I mean, I asked you the question before, because there's no relationship between identifying as a female or a male and, because that's back to what's between your legs. It's different between your legs, and then your sexual preference. So, men, women that trans to be male, they could still fancy or want to be with men.
Yeah, well, a lot of people get confused about sexual orientation and gender identity, but they are completely separate things. Most people, most transgender people, keep their sexuality the same. So not all do, some change. So I've got to be prepared for that. But if it stays the same, as certainly at the moment it feels as if it's the same, so I would have been going from being a heterosexual man to being a lesbian. So it completely messes with your head, doesn't it? It's a politer way of putting it than I did when I spoke earlier.
She did swear before. I'm not sure whether she'll put it or not.
It wasn't very ladylike language, though, was it?
It was a mind twister. So put it that way. But change it for a swear word. Yeah. No, and I asked that question. I said to you before, I want to ask you that question, not to be controversial or anything like that. I'm sat here asking the questions, and that's my job, is to ask the questions that I'm either thinking myself or someone else is going to be thinking.
Absolutely.
And if I ever ask anyone any questions, there's not an alternative. It's just to get as much out, because someone will say, well, what does that mean, and how does that work? So you currently, obviously, you've not got the luxury, as you said at the start, of going away and hiding away for a couple of years and coming back, because you're actually quite well known and successful business owner, which is fantastic, and don't see any reason why that cannot continue. So what's the process now? Do you have to dress and be as a female for so long before anything can happen, or any drugs, or
it's a whole long process. So, I mean, the first thing you have to do is just go and see your GP. So that's the first thing, and then tell your GP, and then what they do is then refer you to a gender identity clinic.
Yeah.
Now, the nearest gender, I live in the Midlands in the UK, and the nearest gender identity clinic is in Daventry, in Northamptonshire. And guess how long the waiting list is for there to get a first appointment?
Probably a while.
Go on, have a guess.
18 months?
2 years, 8 months.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then the next nearest one is Nottingham, and theirs is 2 years, 4 months. And then the next nearest one I found out was one in Sheffield, and that was 1 year, 4 months. So that was a lot less. So I'm on their waiting list. However,
wow.
It's a long time, isn't it?
Well, it is, if you think about it, because you've then got 12, 18 months, 2 years, or whatever, of being still in turmoil, of going, well, what happens next, and that's a long time,
especially when you've taken a long time to get to this momentous decision. It really feels urgent. There feels a real urgency about it.
I'd want to.
Yeah,
you want
to get on with it.
It's like everything, isn't it? It's like I want to get on. I want to.
Yeah.
If this is who I am, and now I've identified who I am after 40 odd years, and I'm now definitely this person. You want to
get on with it before you die, don't you?
Yeah, because every hour, every week is must be painful.
Absolutely. So I was actually in the lucky position that I was able to afford to just pay for some private treatment. So I went to a private clinic in London, which is actually run by the same people who run the Charing Cross Gender Identity Clinic, which is the NHS one.
Right.
But they have a private clinic as well. And I was very lucky to get cancellation appointments, because there's actually a long waiting list, even for private treatment. There's so much demand for this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the business to be in, I'll tell you.
It sounds like
you want to retrain, I'll tell you.
It sounds like it.
But so the first step is to see a gender psychiatrist. And so basically they assess you and basically work out whether you have got gender dysphoria or not. And the psychiatrist said, yes, I have got gender dysphoria. So I've been officially diagnosed with that. And then he recommended me to go on hormones. So then the next thing, you have to see an endocrinologist, which is a hormone specialist. So the hormone specialist then, so they take a lot of bloods and everything, and then they work out what you should be on. So again, I mean, there was actually a year-long waiting list to see him. But again, I was really lucky, and I managed to get a cancellation appointment a month ago, and I went in to see him and came out with a private prescription for HRT. So I've been on HRT for a month now.
Right, and do you have to? Is that you stay? Did you have to stay on that then? Is that a lifelong?
Yeah,
thing?
absolutely for life. But it changes the dose, so depending on what the endocrinologist says. So basically, the drugs that I'm on basically an anti-androgen, which is a testosterone blocker.
Yeah.
And that should stop any more male pattern baldness. Now you can't see at the moment because I'm wearing a wig. Really good for radio, this.
Yeah.
But I've got some male pattern baldness. It's not that.
It's a good wig, though, people. It's a good wig.
Thank you.
Go and have a look at the photographs we're going to take at the end.
But yeah, my hair is thinning. Typical.
Right, okay. You never thought about
and
that.
So that will sort of stop any further thinning. But then I'm also using some Regain, which you can just buy from pharmacies. It's really expensive, £35 for a month's worth of it. So I hope it works. So putting that on it, but apparently it takes 10 years for your hair follicles to die completely. So I've got a good chance of getting a reasonable amount of regrowth back, because I don't want to wear a wig for the rest of my life. However good this wig is, it's just much nicer just to have your own hair. It's like wearing a hat all the time.
So, I can imagine. I can imagine,
especially in hot weather, you don't really want to be doing that. So I know some people have to, but if I've got the choice, I'd rather not. So so that's it in terms of the hair.
Or you'll be wearing hats with hair hanging out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that'd be my solution.
Those comedy ones.
A nice hat with some nice hair hanging out, and then you're up. Well, it's the same difference then.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's the basically estrogen tablets, basically, and then they start you off on a fairly low dose, which I'm on at the moment, and then they gradually increase as you go on, and they're just constantly testing your bloods and your estrogen levels and everything else, the liver function tests and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So that I should imagine, because obviously hormones are there for something, that will then obviously change your moods and things like that, won't it? Because that's what it does, doesn't it? It does changes it. I think the hormones will change you in some way, shape or form, the way you think, I suppose.
It was amazing actually. Within 2 days of starting on HRT, my skin felt so much softer, noticeably, within 2 days.
Wow.
And so I've been on it a month now, and I've already got a small bit of breast growth as well.
Right.
So not these that you're seeing at the moment. These are false.
Don't worry, she's got a top on. It's not one I know it's warm, but we're all right.
Yeah, you've got very cold hands as well, Kurt.
and
You'll be hearing from my lawyers.
And as you can tell, Katie has got a very good sense of humour. No, but it's really interesting, because that's the sort you're talking about, discussing things quite openly about things that's happening and changes, which is great. And that also must, if you've identified yourself as female, to actually start to gain breasts must be pretty, amazing for you as well.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah,
that must be like,
and I sort of feel that they ache sometimes, and I think that's great, because it just shows that there's something happening there. And it's really encouraging.
And there's millions of women out there, my wife would be included, going, "Why would you want to be a woman? I hate it." My wife wants to come back as a man because she hates all the hormones and everything. That's why I asked you about the hormones, because I know that does affect people.
Absolutely,
it has a massive effect on you, and it just changes, physically changes you, and different, your mood, and that's why people are like they are, aren't they? Because they're affected by the hormones.
Yeah, I mean the hormones won't affect my voice at all, but they might affect it slightly. It has a lot more effect on female to male transgender people. Their voices drop, but it doesn't work the other way around. So I've got a very deep voice at the moment, so I've got to have voice coaching. So at the moment, I'm not trying to put on a female voice. You know why I'm here. We're discussing it, and so I'm just totally open about who I am. If I was going out, say, to a shop or something and talking to a shop assistant, I'd probably try and sort of put on a higher voice and try and talk more from my head voice rather than my chest voice. So at the moment I'm talking from a chest, typical sort of bloke, talking fairly on a sort of quite a monotone. Women have less resonance. So if I try and talk up a little bit more from my head, and so it's going up a little bit more, just pitches up just a little bit more, and just put a little bit more light and shade into it. It sounds a little bit more feminine. But I need to do a lot of work on it. I haven't started voice coaching yet, so I'll just go back down to my my bloke voice.
I know, and I've got quite a deep voice. And that must be quite difficult. That's obviously something you're going to have to practice and get into. And
that's the hardest thing for me, to be honest.
Your voice.
Because I'm fairly confident about the way I look at the moment. I'm very lucky that I'm only 5'7". I'm fairly slightly built, and I've got a sort of heart-shaped face. So at least I don't feel the need to have any facial feminization surgery like a lot of trans people do. So I'm very, very lucky, and I'm very appreciative of that. And lots of my friends are having that sort of surgery. I don't feel the need to. So I'm okay with the way I look, but it is the way I sound that I need more confidence, I need more work. But I can't actually start the voice coaching until I'm living as Katie full time, because I need to be able to practice it all the time to make it a habit.
So that's a good question then. So when would you be living as Katie all the time? Is he a date that you decide to do that, or?
It is entirely down to me, and it's a tricky one really, because now that I've announced this and did the great the coming out video and everything, lots of my friends, they're really impatient to see me now. When are we going to see Katie? And so it's a bit of a novelty for them. They're desperate to see me as Katie. And so, but now everybody knows I can sort of come and go from my house as I want to now. I don't have to come and go under cover of darkness like an SAS operation like I used to. But it's one of those things that I wanted to give a sort of definite sort of switchover point to my clients. But I didn't want to do it too soon because I'm having to have facial hair removal treatment. And for each treatment, you have to have about 3 days worth of hair growth before you do it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really want to do that while presenting as female because the bearded lady look isn't a great look, let's face it. So I thought, well, I'll get a little bit of that done first before I do it. So maybe sort of 2 or 3 months, something like that. But I don't know exact date. But yeah, I think we're looking at that. I don't really want to be hanging on for much longer than that. But if it wasn't for that, I'd sort of say, just do it now.
It makes sense. You've come to the realization, or you've come to that decision, and it does make sense. And if that's who you are, then you want to be cracking on with it. And it just makes sense with the facial hair, because then why not? Well, I can you can get away with being the male person for a bit whilst that's sorted.
Exactly.
And then off you go.
It's not a problem then, is it? But okay, I'll still have to have more afterwards. But if I can just get a bit more treatment done first, that would be really good. And also, I just wanted to give that definite date to my clients, so that at least they know that up until a certain date, until I email them to let them know, then when they book me, they'll be getting Martin turning up on the job, and then after that date, then they'll be getting Katie, and at least they know. And it's just about informing people rather than thinking, oh, who are we going to get today?
Well, I wasn't sure when you I had a feeling you'd come as Katie today, because obviously that's why we're doing the thing. So I was pleasantly surprised when I opened the door and you came as yourself.
Well, I wanted to, because I wanted you to see that just how normally I dress, and that a lot of people, when they think about transgender people, they think of pantomime dames and stuff like that, and it's nothing as outrageous as that. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's nothing as outrageous.
No,
as that.
and I never expected that, because that's a totally different thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's like you say, that's someone who just wants to cross dress or wants to be what's the word? Yeah, anyway.
Drag.
Yeah, that's it, sorry.
Well, cross-dressing, again, has different... I mean, some people do it to the extreme like that, other people don't. I never did. I always did it. I always dressed like this when I was cross-dressing. So I just want... My whole aim is to... it's a horrible word to pass, but just to blend in, just as a normal woman, and not be noticed.
You want to be a woman. You're not doing it for the shock effect, are you? You're not doing it to be. You're not going to do a Lady Gaga and wear. You know what I mean?
You haven't seen my meat dresses.
No, exactly. Any vegans have all fainted now. But it's
lost a few more listeners.
And people obviously hear the word, transgender, transsexuals, or whatever, and just wrap them up into this one thing, and immediately think of someone like Paul O'Grady type of thing, or Dame Edna Everage, or do you know what I mean? I'm just because you know what I mean?
And that's exactly why I wanted to come in as Katie, just so that you could see me. And I know it's not great for radio, but as I say, we'll take a picture.
Yeah, we'll have pictures and people can go see them.
Yeah.
They'll be on the show notes.
Yeah.
There was something else that was going on. There was a question I was asking. He was talking, and I can't think what the blooming hell it was now. It's gone. Because I never use, if you noticed, I never use notes. I just let the conversation. These interviews or these podcasts are set to be, I just want people to feel like they're sat in the room with us. So that's why there's no questions. It's just a conversation with two individuals. And I want the people outside and the outside world to feel that they're in the room with us and listening to us, and they're just eavesdropping on a conversation that we're having, and the questions that, and hopefully the questions that I ask are the questions that other people want to asking. You know, they want to know the answer to. I'm just trying.
Well, I'm more than happy to be asked anything. I'm as you can tell, I'm completely open about all this, and I want to try and demystify this if I can. And I'd like, following the superb reaction that I got from my coming out video, I'd like to become a trans ambassador to try and help other people.
And I think you make a really good one as well. And
thank you.
There's very similarities in what you're trying to achieve and what I'm trying to achieve. Totally separate, but minority, 15% of the population dyslexic, very misunderstood. Schooling set up for the 80%, and you need to learn this way. Oh, you can't learn by watching videos. You've got to learn by this, and you've got to do these exams, and you've got to be a certain way.
You've got a good taste in dresses as well, Kirk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's a real issue for lots of people, and same with you, and same with other people going through this similar sort of confusion and
sure.
with what's, because we're told things, aren't we? You said something before about you're identified as that. You're told it's same. It's a bit similar to religion, aren't you? You're told when you're born, if your parents are religious, you'll be christened, and you're a Christian. No, actually, no, you're a Jew. You're Jewish, or you're a Muslim, or whatever.
Yeah. It's just forced on you, isn't it?
But then when you get old, you might go, well, actually, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God.
Yeah,
what do you mean you don't believe in God?
Yeah.
Well, why do I have to... Do you know,
absolutely, yeah.
And that was the question I wanted to ask you before, and it kept going from my head. And you say you're friends, so I'm presuming that since you've started your blogging and started to come out and talk about it, you've got a circle of friends that are similar, going through some sort of thing. Is that how you've got
absolutely.
these friends, or have you always had those friends?
No, I just basically met them just basically through self-help support groups on Facebook mainly. I mean, Facebook's brilliant for this. I mean, a lot of people knock Facebook, but I tell you what, through this is Facebook at its best. I mean, for the support groups that there are, the support groups for like anything that you want out there, and then there are certainly lots for transgender people. And there's also support groups for families and loved ones of transgender people as well, because they have a tough time as well. So there's lots of that out there. But also in terms of the coming out video and all the rest of it, that was on Facebook, and that was phenomenal as well. So Facebook has been absolutely instrumental in that. And so I got a lot of friends from there. But funny enough, actually, there was another friend actually that I had completely outside of Facebook who came out as transgender about the same time as I did, and it was a real coincidence. I go to a business networking group on a Thursday morning, and I decided that when I was going to come out, that I was going to show the coming out video to my friends in the business group first, before putting it all on Facebook. Because all I told them was that I had an announcement to make. They had no idea what was coming. So I set it up on the projector and everything. They're all sitting there, and I was thinking, all right, okay, right, press play and just stand there and watch the reactions. And I was like standing there, like sipping my cup of tea, just looking around, just trying to see what reactions I was getting from people. But everybody was so lovely; they were great, and there were people coming up and hugging me afterwards. And we went around. We do a thing where we do sort of testimonials and referrals afterwards. Went around the room. And it's amazing how many people stood up and said they either had friends who were transgender, or they were very closely related to. I won't go into the details because I don't want to out them. But very, very closely related to transgender people. And then later on that day, I heard from a lady who actually wasn't at that meeting, but is a member. And she said one of the ex-members who actually left about 3 months previously came out to her the day before as being a transgender woman as well. Complete coincidence. there's a lot of us about.
Yeah.
And I've since met up with her, and we've become very good friends, through this. I mean, obviously we were friends before, but just through the business group. But we've become very good friends just through it.
Yeah, because you've got a common interest, haven't you?
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
you can confide in each other and talk about things, and everybody needs support, don't they? Even if you talk about business networking, and for me, I started business networking not to grow my business. I was starting business networking because I was working from home 5 days a week. My wife was working away; she's not now, and I wasn't having the interaction with people.
Yeah,
So
it's a good social scene, isn't it?
it's good, yeah. And from that, it's developed into something else. But yeah, so I get it. It's not just about business; it's about friendships, about relationships with other people, meeting other humans, and I think it's great that you've found the reaction you've got, because some people would react very negative to what you're doing and what you've done. Very negative. There's still people out there that are going like, what's that all about?
Yeah, often very religious people I found have been like that. So they tend to have a bit of a hang up about it. But they tend to sort of override the brain. They sort of say, "Oh, it's how you're born." Well, how you're born, they're ignoring your brain. They're only looking at your genitals. They're not looking at your brain. So they're just saying, "Well, your brain doesn't count then." Well, actually, your brain does count, and you can't change your brain, but you can change your body.
I think people need to be open about lots of things, whether that's religion, whether that's sexuality, because personally, I'm not very religious. I was brought up, as a Christian, been christened and all the rest of it. I got to the point a few years ago where I was like, well, actually, I believe there was someone called Jesus. I believe there was someone like that years ago who had some great ideas, was a good motivator, yeah. The rest of it, forget it. Do you know what I mean? So the Bible and whichever religion you're from has a good set of rules, doesn't it? That, you shouldn't kill people, you shouldn't nick off someone, you shouldn't, sleep with someone's partner. And so the basis, the solid basis. So I believe in the theme of it, and I think it's a good way to live, but I'm not really religious. I'm not, I know a lot of people that are vegans. I'm a real big meat eater, and it just depends what you are and what you want to do, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just being broad-minded enough to accept that everybody has their own issues. It's called the human condition. We've all got something. Like you were talking about, dyslexia is a big thing in your life, and so that's your big thing. And everyone's got something that.
Of course they have.
And this is my big something that I have to deal with. And that, I don't want to be trans. I wish I wasn't trans. I wouldn't choose to be trans. Nobody who's trans wants to be trans, but you don't have a choice in it. You are who you are. The only choice you have is how you deal with it. And I've just decided to deal with it head on and just confront it and to say, yeah, right, well, this is what it is. This is me.
Yeah, I get that. And I think the question, and I keep referring back to myself because I can only refer to myself, and what you've just said then is about me being dyslexic. There's sometimes that I get really frustrated with it and wish I wasn't. If you know what I mean, I wish it, but then I go, actually, all the amazing benefits I get from being dyslexic. If someone offered me a pill to take now to not be dyslexic, I wouldn't, because all the stuff I'm doing, I believe, is related because of me of being dyslexic. And if take that dyslexia away, would actually change me. I wouldn't be me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to change.
Yeah.
And people have to just get on with the fact that I might use the wrong words, or I hate not remembering people's names. People take a big offence when you forget the name.
Of course.
And I have to say to people, by the way, like I asked you what your name was again when you came today, because it just completely gone out of my head.
Well, that's fine. Yeah.
And it's a really interesting subject, this, and I think it's a really interesting journey. And you're really only just starting on your journey, aren't you? If
Absolutely.
It's quite a relatively, even though you've lived lifelong with being I forget the bloody word now.
With gender dysphoria.
That's the one.
Yeah.
They see what I mean?
Well, it's quite a mouthful to remember anyway, isn't it?
So you've lived with that for all your life, whether you knew it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I lived with being dyslexic all my life. I didn't know until I was 44. And I found out I thought I was dyslexic. I was like, how can I be dyslexic? You know what I mean? So, but even that's the case, you're now just relatively new into your journey. And I suppose there's going to be in the future some ups and downs, and things are going to come your way, and things are going to change. And I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very brave. I think it's really brave what you've done, the way that you've done it.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping, and I know. Well, I'm not hoping. I know that the fact that you're doing what you're doing, the blogs you're writing, you appearing here, you've been on the BBC, doing your videos, is going to help people. And
I really hope so.
All I'd like to say to people, if you are listening to this, whether it's 6 months, 12 months from when it's been done, because it'll be on a podcast, and you've come across this, then please drop Katie a line. And if you've got any questions, or you're going through something similar, or you might have, you might have kids, or you might have partners that are going through something, and you want someone to confide in, I'd come and speak to you, because at least as someone independent, you can answer questions.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to offer support, and I think that's part of it. I think just because I've been through this and still going through this, it's all part of a big journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And all I can do, I suppose, is just refer to what I've gone through. But just in, it's just such a massive thing to be able to identify, to admit to yourself that you're transgender, and that's a huge thing. And I think that's one of the hardest steps. I think actually once you actually admit it, you then actually start that process, and then it just picks up momentum by itself. But actually admitting to yourself in the first place is really, really hard.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for a lot of things.
Yeah.
You need, and it's getting to that point, and whatever way you do that, whether you go stomping around Rutland Water or go and speak to someone or whatever, then life. Once you get over that initial thing, or you've realised who you are, or what you are, then it becomes easy, because then at least you know where you need to go and the questions you need to ask. And it's a bit like having a business, isn't it? If you know where your business is going. Then at least you've got a chance of getting there, haven't you? You've got to decide I'm doing this, and this is what I'm doing. Yeah. And same as life, and I think it's a shame when people are not true to themselves, or what they that as an individual. We're on this planet for a very short space of time. Unless you're a Buddhist, we're only here once. It's a very short time, and you need to be happy. Everybody needs to be happy.
Absolutely. And you can't live your life for other people.
No.
Yeah, just to make them happy. It's important. In order to be happy yourself, you have to live an authentic life. And if you're living as somebody you feel you're not,
I love that. Yeah.
Then it's really hard to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what I want, just to be happy. And that's what everybody wants, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we should be happy. There's no point. No one in the world should be miserable, and there's no this day and age, and especially we live in we're quite fortunate. We live in a quite a developed economy and part of the world.
But at least if I am miserable, I can always blame it on the hormones, can't I?
Well, I thought you've got a bloody great excuse. Oh, what's wrong with you today? But yeah, I think we've covered virtually everything I wanted to cover. And is there anything you want to add? Is there anything you've missed, or you want people to know? Or?
I don't think so. I think, actually, I suppose the other thing I want to point out is that a lot of people think that being transgender is all about an operation, having your bits chopped off. It's not. We haven't even discussed that at all, have we, today?
I didn't want to ask the question.
No, but it's okay.
I presumed, rightly or wrongly, that, well, I presume two things. People either do or don't.
Yeah.
Some people would rather keep the genitalia.
Yeah.
And because, like you say, that doesn't define you as a man or a woman.
No, absolutely.
But then I also think that a lot of people will go make a decision, which is a big decision, to go the full way, and then actually become physically female.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of trans people don't have genital surgery. At the moment, I feel as if I do want that. That might change. I don't know. But you have to be living in your desired gender for at least a year before a surgeon will even consider you for it. And I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, me too. Because that is it's not like. Yeah, that is a massive decision, but if you're very clear in your head that is what you want to do, and I think that 12 months probably is about right. Gives you time.
And there's a waiting list after that anyway, but that's when they start considering you for it. But to be honest, that's a long way off anyway, but I just wanted to make the point because a lot of people think that it's just about the operation, and we've covered a lot of ground just talking about all the other aspects of it, and there's just so much more to it, and it's not just about an operation.
Yeah, and I didn't want to ask, and I didn't even feel. I didn't even feel the need. I didn't even feel the need to ask that. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's fine. Well, I just wanted to point it out because a lot of people, it's a misconception for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's a choice whether. Yeah, well, it is a choice, personal choice. Like I say, if that's not what you identify as being male or female, then what's it matter what it is? You know, it's like having different coloured hair or eyes, isn't it? You know, well, yeah, I'm going to go blonde today, and
it's interesting actually that when I did that, when I was going through that book, the self-help book, it really helps you to analyse your gender identity to the nth degree, and I worked out whereabouts I am on the gender spectrum, and I reckon I'm probably about 70% female, 30% male.
Right.
So I know that there'll always be that male part of me, but the majority of me is female, and I'm comfortable with that. But say most people have no need to even examine that. But being the majority female just shows that there's a mismatch there with my male body parts. Yeah. So that's why I needed to make the transition.
Cool. Well, it's been wonderful to speak to you today. Just put a quick plug for your business and where people can get your blog.
Okay, well, the business is Martin Neeves Photography and Film, and that's martinneeves.com. That's MartinNeeves.com. And then for my transition blog, it's martinneeves.com/Katie. And it's Katie with an IE.
Well, it's been wonderful, and I'm sure everyone will be interested in following your journey, as I will. Please keep in touch.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming along today. It's been a wonderful interview. I've really enjoyed it. It's
been
really interesting, and thanks very much for coming along today, and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kirk. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, so like I say, it was really great to talk to Katie, and go and check her out. If you're listening on the podcast, all the show notes will be there, links to the website and the blog, etc., etc. So you've been listening to me, Kurt Bickstone, aka Duggystone, on Duggystone Radio. Duggystone Radio, DUGGYSTONE Radio, DuggystoneRadio.com. And as always, this has been The Duggystone Show. Oh yeah. The Duggystone Show. Yeah, don't forget, every day, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. are the business-centric shows. So the business shows or interviews, we normally play cracking music on them as well. So don't forget to check them out. The website's constantly evolving, new images on there. So go and check out DuggystoneRadio.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram as Duggystone Radio as well. So everything's Duggystone Radio. So DUGGYSTONE, Duggystone Radio. And let's have a word from our show sponsor today as well.
Concerned about your behaviour or finding life too difficult? Are you or someone you love suffering with an addiction? Addiction or behaviour problems are linked with inner pain. As a qualified counsellor and psychotherapist, I'll help you resolve your problems or struggles. Email ian@ianrichardsbtj.com or call 07465 226668.
Yeah, so go and check Ian out. Great guy, great, knowing person as well. And that's he's a freaking global sponsor. Dead easy to be a freaking global sponsor. Just drop us a line. Contact, or you can send one to me actually. Kirk, KIRK, at DuggystoneRadio.com. DUGGYSTONE radio.com. And you can also send shout boxes on our website. So until next time, people, keep it Duggystone Radio. See ya.